So, brethren, I just want to talk a little bit about governments today, actually. Our Constitution, for example, controls or guides what we do in this country. I think there's a lot of patriotism about the U.S. Constitution. There are many people that think that the Constitution is one of the greatest documents of law that's in human history. A lot of people are very proud of it. What does a Constitution control? A lot of different things, right? We've got basic principles, but everything from voting to immigration, taxes, trade, medical issues, drugs. A lot of things aren't really black and white, though, are they? It's a lot of nuance, a lot of disagreement. A lot of people have a lot of different views on all those things I just mentioned. We see a lot in the news right now about judges, and depending on your perspective, some of what the judges are doing are saving the Constitution. If you look at a different perspective, some of what some of these federal judges are doing are undermining the Constitution. So there's a lot of judgment that's required as well, different perspectives. So there's a lot of different things in day-to-day life, very practically, that Congress tries to deal with, and things are always coming up. I did a sermon where I had this at my fingertips, how many laws Congress makes every year, and it's a lot. There's thousands and thousands of laws. It's not just the Bill of Rights or just that document of the Constitution. Laws are constantly being made because situations arise every day where people look and they go, don't really have a law for this. Things come up because in a very pragmatic way, we live our lives in a lot of different situations and different circumstances we find ourselves in. So we have the United States Constitution. It's a constitutional republic. It's not a democracy. It has some democratic principles, but most people don't realize this. It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. So that 51% of us don't, control what the other 49% do. We could become a dictatorship in that way. So the Constitution's really the law of the land here. In the UK, they have a constitutional monarchy, a little bit different. Yes, they have a constitution, but they also have the king, and they have had that. Germany has a federal parliamentary republic. Their constitution is basically in German, translated called Basic Law. France has a constitutional republic, very similar. I used to think that when I was a kid that the United States was the only country that had a constitutional republic. But no, all these countries have a constitution. Russia actually has a federal semi-presidential republic. And yes, they have a constitution. It's called the Constitution of the Russian Federation. So all these different countries have slightly different versions of what they say is their law, the Constitution, that guides their day-to-day life. We have a law that's expounded in this book. Jesus Christ referred to it as basically two simple principles. Love God above everything and love others as you love yourself. The greatest commandment. He said all the other laws hang on those two. And then we know back in Exodus, God revealed the 10 Commandments to the Israelites. And the 10 Commandments are kind of the basic principles of some of us believe the Judeo-Christian values that guided the founding fathers to write the U.S. Constitution. But there's a lot of different things that the Israelites had to deal with as well. A lot of different circumstances that came up that caused the Israelites to say, not sure what to do in this situation. How does it apply? And believe it or not, there was a constitution when God was leading the Israelites. When God brought the Israelites out of Egypt and sent them to the Promised Land, right before they were going to go over to the Jordan, one of the last things that Moses did for the Israelites is shared a lot of these different types of laws, statutes, judgments that would guide the Israelites in some of these day-to-day situations practically that would come up. Things that weren't necessarily obvious if you looked at the Ten Commandments. It's called the book of Deuteronomy. The English word Deuteronomy comes from the Septuagint. It means the second law giving. Literally, that's how it's translated. Deuteronomy means second law giving. And I was just reading the intro of I have a study Bible. This is a study Bible from, let me see the author. I don't have it at my fingertips here. But the author of this Bible put some commentary. I thought it was interesting what he said here. He says that Deuteronomy may be viewed as a constitution for the theocracy of Israel. So the constitution that guided Israel's day-to-day living when they were in the Promised Land, and God, Jesus the Christ, as we know from John chapter 1, was guiding them. He was their leader. So I thought that it would be valuable, brethren, to take a look at this constitution, the constitution of the ancient Israelites, and maybe we can glean something from it as we start to think about, as Bill mentioned, the Feast of Tabernacles coming up, which we know represents 1,000 years, a time when God's going to be in charge again. We have man in charge, and we have all these different governments, all these different constitutions. When Jesus is in charge, what law is he going to implement, to govern? Of course, we're going to be kings and priests, and so we need to know the laws as kings and priests. So let's take a look at Deuteronomy. I want to dive into that book. Let's start in chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4. We'll just start in verse 1 here. Now, therefore, hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that you may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers gives you. You shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish aught from it. In other words, what God says is the law, that's it. It's not up to man. It's not in man's authority to change it, add or take away. This is God's laws, his statutes and his judgments. He says that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. You can even reference Revelation 22, where he says the same thing. Don't add to it or take away. In fact, there's going to be cursings to anybody that does that. He says in verse 3 here, your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. So there were some of the Israelites that were worshiping some of the pagan gods, and they had a consequence. You can read about that. I think that's in, I think in Numbers. We can go look at that. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God has destroyed them from among you. But ye that did cleave unto the Lord your God are alive, every one of you, this day. So God's laws, these are laws that promote life. It says, behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that you should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom. There's wisdom in these statutes and judgments. And your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes, and they say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people. For what nation is there so great, who has God so near unto them as the Lord our God is in all the things that we call upon him for? And what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law? Moses is really talking up this constitution. It will be the envy of the world, this one. Wise, wisdom, understanding. He says, and what nation is there so great that has statutes and judgments so righteous as all this law which I set before you this day? Only make heed to yourself, and keep thy soul diligently, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, unless they depart from thy heart all the days of your life, but teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. We're supposed to teach these statutes and judgments to our children and every generation on and on and on. So what's in it? What is in this Constitution? Well, there's the Ten Commandments, for sure, the moral law. That's in Deuteronomy again. But there's also other things, other practical laws about everyday living. There's laws about what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. Laws of health. There's laws that have to do with the tithes and Sabbaths. There's laws about the Levitical organization, how the church and the Levitical law should be administered. And there's laws about human relationships, about civil living, everyday life. We have laws about, you see this little rectangular red sign when you pull up on your car, and it means stop. If you didn't have that law, there would be danger, chaos. That's a statute. It helps to bring law and order, peace, safety. Is a stop sign a moral law? If you don't really stop, are you morally doing something wrong? Well, there could be an argument for that, maybe. But there's a little bit of a difference from something like thou shalt not murder, right? But it's a practical law. It governs everyday life. It helps to keep the peace and keep safety. And God has some of these laws in Deuteronomy as well, and I think it's very interesting when you start diving into it and see how God thinks, what His society looks like when it's governed by His Constitution. So let's start here. First of all, real quickly, what is the difference between a commandment, a judgment, and a statute? Very quickly, a commandment, according to Webster's, is an authoritative command or order, often referring specifically to one of the Ten Commandments. It is a precept. Precept is like a foundational law on which other laws would be built. That's a commandment. Commandments are in effect always and forever. In every situation they apply. Now, there are some of these civil laws that don't apply to every situation. There's going to be some things like a stop sign. Stop sign doesn't apply when I'm on a freeway. However, the moral laws apply everywhere, in all cases. So that's a commandment. A judgment, very simply, it's a decision of a court or a judge. So it's a reaction. There was something that happened, and a judgment was made. It might be an order to go do something, like go kill that person because they committed a crime. There was a judgment. Or a judgment like you have to pay that person damages. It's situational. It's subjective. Judgments aren't in all cases for all time. They're particular to that specific instance. So God has some judgments in here. And then there are statutes. So what is a statute? A statute is a written law passed by a legislative body. It's a written law. A statute is a formal written law enacted by a legislative body such as a parliament or a Congress. There's a law that has been passed by a legislative body that can be federal or state. Statutes typically declare command or prohibit something, or they're used to establish rules or regulations. Statutes are in effect while that governing body is in charge. So, there are statutes when I'm in the United States. When I get my passport and I go to France, and I'm in France, I'm under a different set of statutes. When I was in the military, Marines, believe it or not, I was under a different law, a different set of statutes. It's called the Military Code, or the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It was slightly different. See, I thought I had rights in the Marines, and then my drill instructor told me I don't really have any rights once I signed that paper. So the statutes are really in effect as long as the governing body that made that statute is in charge. So, who is in charge in Israel during the time that we're talking about in Deuteronomy? It's God. So God has statutes. All right, so let's dive in here. Deuteronomy chapter 18. Let's turn there. Let's start looking at some of these because some are very interesting when you start to think about how pragmatic God is, how practical He is, dealing with a range of different things that we might run into in everyday life. So we'll start in verse 9. When you are come into the land which the Lord your God gives you, thou shalt not learn to do after the abominations of those nations. And I just want to take a pause here. What I'm going to go through, brethren, is, as I read through this, I took the liberty of categorizing them into 4 themes that I was able to kind of categorize them in. Doesn't mean that that's it. You can't put God in a box and say that there's only 4 themes of His law. It's just my view of it. I would challenge you to study the Deuteronomy and add theme 5, 6, or 7. Right? But I'm just going to share 4 themes here of what I was able to kind of capture from reading through Deuteronomy. So this is the first theme we're going to focus on. We'll see if you can figure it out. So when you come into the land, learn not to do of the abominations of those nations. There shall be none found among you any one that makes his son or his daughter to pass through the fire, or that uses divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits. In other words, don't mess with witchcraft or a necromancer. Don't try to talk to the dead or anything like that. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord your God does drive them out from before you. And it's interesting. People that do these things, if they did participate in these things, what did God say? He says He will drive them out. Get them out from before you. He doesn't want it to be part of Israel. He says, you shall be perfect with the Lord your God. For these nations which you shall possess hearkened unto observers of times and unto diviners. But as for you, the Lord your God has not suffered you to do so. God does not want the Israelites to partake in any of those other rituals or anything from the people that were in that land when the Israelites went over there. Look over here in chapter 21. Another example of this theme that I'll share with you, verse 18. If a man have a stubborn and rebellious son, which will not obey the voice of his father or the voice of his mother, and that when they have chastened him will not hearken unto them, then shall his father and his mother lay hold on him, and bring him unto the elders of his city and unto the gates of his place. And they shall say unto the elders of the city, this is our son, stubborn and rebellious. He will not obey our voice. He is a glutton and a drunkard. And all the men of his city shall stone him with stones, that he die. So shall you put evil away from among you. Wow. This is God's constitution. Remember the commandment, honor your mother and your father? So here's a son who just is rebellious, won't listen. Must have got to a pretty bad point for the parents to bring him before, knowing what the consequence was. But what did God do? Give him counseling? I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I'm just reading what God had here in His Constitution. Stone him. Why? To get it out from among you. Put the evil away from among you, and all Israel shall hear and fear. Look over here, and let's just keep reading here. Verse 22, and if a man have committed a sin worthy of death, and he be not put to death, and you hang him on a tree, so let's say someone did something and you killed him, or as according to the law, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree. But you shall in any wise bury him that day, for he that is hanged is accursed of God, that. So we talked about getting the evil out of Israel, the people. God even wants the land to have evil moved from it. He says, thy land be not defiled, which the Lord your God has given you for an inheritance. Are you starting to see a little bit of a theme here in this first value, this first theme of some of God's law? This is a very interesting one, verse 20. Let's go back here. Let's read in verse 14. Let me see if I've got this right. Deuteronomy 20, verse 14. But the woman and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even all the spoil thereof, shalt you take unto you. So this is when they go in. Okay, here, let's start in 13. And when the Lord your God has delivered it into your hands, you shall smite every male, therefore, with the edge of the sword. But the woman and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in the city, even the spoil thereof, shall you take unto yourself, and you shall eat in the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord your God has given you. Thus shall you do unto all the cities which are far off from you, which are not the cities of this nation, but the cities of these people, which the Lord your God does give you for an inheritance. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that they teach you not to do after all their abominations, which they have done unto their gods. So should you sin against the Lord your God. So in other words, when they were to go into the land, any of these lands mentioned, they were to kill everything. Why? So that they would not be infected by sin. You can continue on. I'll let you read some of these other ones. You can read in 22:13 through 30, talking about not letting slander be among you, not letting sexual impropriety or sexual impurity be part of the congregation. 23, 9 through 14. Hey, let's turn with me to 23, 9 through 13 here. This is interesting. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 9. When the host goes forth against your enemies, then keep you from the wicked thing. If there be any among you that is not clean by reason of cleanness, that chances him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. So this has to deal with bodily fluids. But it shall be when evening comes on, he shall wash himself with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come unto the camp again. I talked about the practicalness of God. Talking about how you don't want to contaminate other people. You don't want to spread disease. You have to wash yourself. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whether you shall go forth abroad. And you shall have a paddle upon the weapon, and it shall be, when you wilt ease yourself abroad, again, pragmatic aspects of God, this is when you have to go to the bathroom. God says, you shall dig therewith, and shall turn back and cover that which comes from you, burying your waste. Very practical. God's teaching the Israelites safety, laws. Do you see a theme in some of what I read? The theme I take is purity, brethren. A theme of purity. God wanted the Israelites to have statutes that kept them pure. Pure spiritually, pure physically. Keep the land pure. Purity. That's the first theme. You can read about it in Acts 15, where Paul tells us that we are to avoid even eating food that's sacrificed to idols to avoid the appearance of evil. Purity. Jesus tells us in Matthew 5:28 that if we even look on a woman to lust after her, we've already committed adultery. Purity of our heart. 1 Corinthians, we're told that our bodies are the very members of Christ. If God's Spirit dwells in us, why would we let our body become impure? Because we're dragging Christ into that impurity. So this first theme, brethren, of some of these laws, the constitution of God, is purity. Let's look over here at the next theme. We'll go back to Deuteronomy chapter 19. We'll start here in 14. Chapter 19, verse 14. Thou shalt not remove your neighbor's landmark, which they of old time have set in thine inheritance, which you shall inherit in the land that the Lord your God gives to possess it. So there were landmarks. I guess this is, some of the people went and claimed plots of land and put a mark there. You weren't to go and remove it. It's a form of stealing. Verse 15, one witness shall not rise up against a man for any iniquity, or for any sin, and any sin that he sins at the mouth of two witnesses. So if there was an accusation, God didn't allow one witness. You had to have at least two. Two witnesses for anything. It says, at the mouth of two witnesses or at the mouth of three witnesses shall the matter be established. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong. Does this ever happen in our country, false witnesses? I'm going to get that guy. I'm going to back into his car, and I'm going to tell the policeman that he ran into me. It happens. And we can all think of examples of false witnesses. Maybe prosecutors that have an agenda. Anyone know an example of a prosecutor that might have had an agenda, maybe bent the law a little bit to go get the person they didn't like? There's examples that happen all the time, brethren. Here's how God says in His Constitution how to deal with this. If a false witness rise up against any man to testify against him that which is wrong, then both of the men between whom the controversy is shall stand before the Lord, before the priests and the judges which shall be in those days. And the judges shall make diligent inquisition, and behold, if the witness be a false witness, and has testified falsely against his brother, then shall you do unto him as he hath thought to have done unto his brother. So shall you put the evil away from among you. Again, we see this theme of purity, putting evil from you. But I think this is interesting. If someone does a false claim against somebody and they're found out, they get the penalty. If I'm going to accuse you of murder and I'm false, penalty of murder is death, then I get the death penalty. I think that would pretty much take care of false witnesses. Interesting to see that theme come through in God's Constitution. Look over here at Deuteronomy chapter 21, another aspect of this theme, the second theme. We'll break into verse 15 here. If a man have two wives, one beloved and another hated, and they have borne him children, both the beloved and the hated, and if the firstborn son be heirs that was hated, then it shall be when he makes his sons to inherit that which he has, that he may not make the son of the beloved firstborn before the son of the hated, which is indeed the firstborn. But he shall acknowledge the son of the hated for the firstborn by giving him a double portion of all that he has, for he is the beginning of his strength. The right of the firstborn is his. What is this one all about? Impartiality. Not having your emotions, or whether you like or dislike someone, impact your judgment or justice. Don't we have that image of Lady Justice is blind? That's a principle that we found our justice system on, is that it really shouldn't matter, that you shouldn't play any favorites. The second theme I see here, brethren, in Deuteronomy is justice. We can read in Psalms 33:5, He loves righteousness and judgment. The earth is full of goodness of the Lord. Isaiah 61:8, For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. The second theme is justice, brethren. Let's look at this third theme here. Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 1. When you go out to battle against your enemies and seest horses and chariots and people more than you, be not afraid of them, for the Lord your God is with you, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be, when you are come near unto the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak unto the people, and shall say unto them, Hear, O Israel, you approach this day unto battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be terrified because of them. For the Lord your God is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. So here we see God encouraging the people before battle, having a little compassion on them. And the officers shall speak unto the people, saying, What man is there that has built a new house? This is interesting. Man that built a new house, and has not dedicated it. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. So, they're getting ready to go to battle. God's comforting the people. And then he says, hey, anyone that hasn't built their house yet, if they just bought a brand new house, don't send them to battle. Let him go enjoy his house a little bit. Let him enjoy it. And what man is he that planted a vineyard, and hath not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man eat of it. And what man is there that has betrothed a wife, and hath not taken her? Let him go and return unto his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man take her. And the officers shall speak further unto the people, and they shall say, What man is there that is fearful and faint-hearted? Let him go and return unto his house, lest his brethren's heart faint as well as his heart. And it shall be, when the officers have made an end of speaking unto the people, that they shall make captains of the armies to lead the people. It's kind of interesting, especially with me, my experience in the military. If there was a war, it didn't matter if we were married or if I just bought a house or whatever, we're getting deployed. And here God is saying, look, have some compassion on some of the people. They're already afraid. They're getting ready to put their lives on the line to defend the Israelites, to defend you. Just think about them. Let them go back to their vineyard before they go to war. Spend a little bit of time there. Enjoy it. After a little bit of time, then they go to war. A little bit of compassion. You can read more about this theme in Deuteronomy 20, verses 19 through 20. You can read about it in Deuteronomy 19, 1 through 13, about an accidental death. If there's an accidental death, the killer is instructed to move to a city of refuge. That allows the healing of the victim, get the person out of the way, and it also allows the safety of the person that made the accidental death. There's compassion there, brethren. So another theme I see if you study Deuteronomy is this theme of compassion. What is compassion? A sympathetic conscientiousness of others. Is God showing conscientiousness of others here? Yes. Empathy, sympathy. There's a theme in God's constitution that we should have compassion for each other. 1 John chapter 3, verses 16 through 18. Hereby perceive we the love of God, because he laid down his life for us. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso has this world's good and sees his brother have need and shuts up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwells the love of God in him? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. We should have compassion for our fellow human beings, as exemplified in Deuteronomy. The fourth theme here that I want to highlight in Deuteronomy, turn with me to Deuteronomy back to 21. We'll look in verse 10. See if you can guess this theme. When you go forth to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God has delivered them unto your hand, and you have taken them captive, and see among the captives a beautiful woman, and has a desire unto her, that you would have her to be your wife, then you shall bring her home to your house, and shall shave her head, and pare her nails, and she shall put the raiment of her captivity from off her, and shall remain in your house, and bewail her father and her mother a full month. And after that you shall go in unto her, and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. So this is, after you take someone captive, give her time to mourn and grieve. Kind of an interesting one. Deuteronomy chapter 22, 1 through 4. Thou shalt not see thy brother's ox or his sheep go astray, and hide yourself from them. So if you see your brother's animals out roaming around, it says, you shall in any case bring them again unto your brother. And if your brother be not near unto you, or if you know him not, then you shall bring it unto your own house, and it shall be with you until your brother seek after it, and you shall restore it to him again. So if you find something that's not yours, don't walk by, don't ignore it, take it, care for it, know that there's someone that might value that, and keep it in store until that person comes looking for it. Kind of another interesting one there. Over here, Deuteronomy 22:6. If a bird's nest chance to be before you in the way in any tree, or on the ground, whether they be young ones or eggs, and the dam sitting upon the young or upon the eggs, you shall not take the dam with the young. But you shall in any wise let the dam go, I guess this is the name for the bird that's on top of the eggs, and take the young to you, that it may be well with you, and that you may prolong your days. I don't know this whole thing about the birds and the eggs. All I take from this is have compassion on the animal. Have compassion on the animal. Be good to animals, even. There's even laws here that talk about how we should treat animals in a humane and dignified way. You can read in Deuteronomy 23, 19 through 20, 24 through 25, about how not to take advantage of the needy or the foreigner. In other words, when you're in a situation where you could take advantage of someone, you don't. Deuteronomy 23, 15 and 16, how to take care of the oppressed, having mercy on them. Brethren, as I read through these scriptures, I think about dignity. About how God wants us to have dignity for our fellow human beings and for His creation. Even the animals, the land, take care of it. Realize that it's valuable to God. Look over here, brethren. I'll just reference this, Genesis 1:27. So God created man in His own image. In the image of God created He him. Male and female created He them. Psalm 139, verse 13, for thou hast possessed my reins, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. We're God's creation. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. Ephesians 2, verse 10, for we are His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus unto good works, which God has before ordained that we should walk in them. Remember, brethren, that we are all created in God's image. And we're all God's children. No matter if we like them, dislike them, enemies, friends, family, whatever it is, every human being deserves a certain amount of dignity. That they They have just because they're God's children, created in God's image. In God's laws in Deuteronomy, you can see many other examples how God set these laws to protect the dignity of human beings and the dignity of animals, the dignity of his creation. Jesus told us in Matthew 25, "Truly I say unto you," about the parable, when we were out feeding the poor, he says, "If you've done this to them, insomuch as you've done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me." How we treat other human beings, essentially, as Jesus is saying, is he'll take it as how we treat him. These are part of his constitution, how to treat others with dignity. There's other things in here you can look about. There's other concepts. Concepts about keeping your word in Deuteronomy 23. Many other things relating that. These are the four that I wanted to hone in on. Brethren, we see that there is a civil law when God was in charge, a constitution, and that there's four basic themes of these laws. Purity, keeping evil away from among us, from the congregation, from ourselves. Justice, not playing favorites, having good judgment, treating people with fairness. Compassion, empathy, sympathy, basically having a heart. And then protecting dignity of God's creation, dignity of other human beings. Brethren, purity, justice, compassion, and dignity. Imagine what the world is like if everybody valued those things. If all the constitutions of the world were built on those four pillars. Purity, keeping sin away from us. Think of all the impurity in the world. Justice. Think of the false witness example of how God dealt with it. Compassion. Maybe taking a step back, putting yourself in other people's shoes. If I were them, how would I want to be treated? Yeah, I'd want to go back and enjoy my house before I go to war. And dignity. I'm in a situation here. Maybe I owe something to somebody, and I'd want them to treat me with respect. We should do the same for others, always. If we do these things, brethren, and apply them, and embrace these values, then we will be exemplifying the very constitution of the divine governance of God in our lives.